Wow, this one is jam-packed full of stuff, folks. I have tons to share with you, and some of it has to do with the Red Mirage. Or maybe it's going to be a red nightmare. I don't know. We're going to find out. So stick with me, folks, and I'll be right back. Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and stick with me on this whole thing. I know it's going to be long, I know already, because I have about 26 tabs open. So this is going to be good. Hang in there. I got lots of stuff for you. So to start out with, I want to bring this to your attention if you haven't heard it already, but evidently Brad Parscale, who used to be the campaign manager for President Trump, barricaded himself in his Fort Lauderdale home. And they had to call the police and everything. And then I think they took him to the hospital under, kind of mental problem clause that they have called the Baker Law or something like that. But yeah, so we don't know really what the status is. But they said that, according to this article, this is a local news. And it says that he was reportedly armed with a gun and threatening to harm himself. And so pray for the family. You don't know what led to this. I don't know what led to it, but it really, seriously, a lot of these people who are involved with Trump are being targeted, and we don't know what kinds of pressures were put on him. But here's the article about it in The Hill, and it just sounds very dangerous, and I just pray for the family. And hope that everything is okay with them and that whatever the situation was, that it has been dealt with. Yeah, the Baker Act is where they can put you in the hospital. If they think you're a danger to yourself or to someone else, they can put you in the hospital for a certain amount of time. It depends on what state you're in as to how long that is. Sometimes it's like 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, whatever, until they can make sure that you're not going to harm yourself or someone else. So anyway, this is what they had to say. Brad Parscale is a member of our family and we all love him. We are ready to support him and his family in any way. And that's from Tim Murtaugh, who is Trump campaign communications director. And he said the disgusting personal attacks from Democrats and disgruntled rhinos, Republicans in name only, have gone too far, and they should be ashamed of themselves for what they've done to this man and his family. So it sounds here like, according to Tim Murtaugh, that this is, related to how he's been treated. And it could very well be. I'm telling you, these people are brutal. And anyone connected to Trump in any way has been attacked just horribly. So keep the family in your prayers. He still has a role overseeing the Trump campaign's digital strategy and serves as an advisor. So, keep the family in your prayers. I hate to see something like that happen. The pressures are immense for all of them. The stakes are very high. So all of these links are going to be down below. You can read through them more if you want to, because I've got so many of them. I don't want to spend too much time on any one. But a lot of people have been saying on Twitter, especially, I've seen this, and I even reported, the Barnes guy. Yeah, he was saying this. And so the claim that she affirmed the lockdown in Illinois, that's not true. And I told you this in the last video, that likely it was how it was worded or something in there. Well, the point was, as I read through this, and this is more of a lighter view of it. So if you want to read this one, this is more in common people speak. It's not a very long article. But if you want a little more in-depth one, some of you like legal things and more detail, this one has a lot more detail about the case itself and everything. And so this guy has been going through and he's like, no, you folks don't understand what really, what the thing was about. And here's the actual ruling, if you want to read that. As I understand it, what they did was the Illinois Republican Party was suing the governor because he was allowing religious organizations to have more freedom. They could have more people in their gatherings than the political organizations. I don't know. That's what it came across to me. And it seemed really strange. But the problem was that they hadn't really built up any case. And the courts, in this case, the Seventh Circuit, couldn't rule on things that were not in the complaint. And so the complaint was not about the lockdowns. The complaint was more about why do the religious organizations get better treatment than the political, because they're both free speech. So I don't know. This took place right after the Elim Pentecostal Church case. And if you didn't see that video of mine, in fact, I had an update in another video too, but I talked about those churches. The main one was this one Romanian church, and a lot of the people there came to the United States to be free from socialism and communism. And so when they were denied being able to go and worship, and you should see, if you watch that video, you'll know that they took every precaution possible. They were distancing, they had masks, they checked the temperature of people walking in the building, they had hand sanitizers everywhere. It was very well done. And the mayor of Chicago and the governor were giving them a lot of grief. And so they did take them to court. And I believe they won so that they could resume their services. But, yeah. Anyway, that took place before this. And then this came out. And the problem with this is there is a law on the books from the late 1800s where evidently there was a smallpox, some kind of outbreak, and they made it law so that people it went through the courts, and they supported forced vaccinations because of that law. That law has not been overturned, and it appears that if people really wanted to, they could probably force vaccinations today. So it's a very interesting law. I'd like to read the whole thing, but because of that law, which is still in existence and is still precedent, then they couldn't rule for, the judges can't make up law. They have to rule according to existing precedent and also the laws. They can only rule on laws. They're not supposed to make things up. I know some of them do, but those aren't the ones that you want in. So these judges had to rule that they ruled against the Republican Party just because the evidence wasn't there, and the statute of having some control over health care situations, emergencies, the governor did have some standing there. But it was very narrowly focused on just, we want the same rights as the church kind of thing. It was weird. It was really weird. So anyway, this explains it much better than I just did, this article right here. So I'll leave the link to this down below, and you can read through that because they go through it and explain everything, like I said, better than I did. Then I found this one on Red State too, and this is New York Times writer suggests that progressives use mockery to defeat Trump. Here's why that won't work. Well, Teflon Don, things don't stick to him. And they go through and here's the article, the link to the New York Times article, to beat Trump, mock him. And it's like, it's not working. It's supposed to work, but it's not working because we're not buying it, and we're so much better at memes than they are and making fun of things. So it's not working. And the guy in the article himself, he says, I'm so frustrated that some forceful criticisms of Trump sometimes come across to undecided voters as strident or over the top. People like me are accused of suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, and our arguments are dismissed precisely because they are so fervent. And this guy says, no, Mr. Kristoff, people like you aren't accused of suffering from Trump derangement syndrome because they are so fervent. You are the subject of this accusation because your arguments are so stupid. I really like this article. It was great. And here he talks about the Coney Barrett thing. And I don't know if you know anything about that, The Handmaid's Tale. That's what they're trying to portray her as. And I watched the first episode of that, and it was so disgusting I couldn't continue. I just couldn't. It was horrible. And when I watched it, I saw it as an attack to anyone who has actual religious values and morality, and that they were trying to paint us all in just a horrible light. So anyway, this is what you've really got to see on this page. You got to come here and watch this because it's so funny. It's called Stop Making Me Defend Donald Trump. And it's these liberals are talking, and this one guy's like, but that's not true. Oh, you are a Trump supporter. Oh, and they all jump all over him. And he says, so stop making me defend him, because they keep making all these false accusations. And so it is funny. I gotta admit, this one is funny. But it's funny because what the guy says is true every time. And his liberal buddies don't want any part of it because, he's supporting Trump. And he's like, I'm not supporting Trump. I voted for Hillary. But, he says you can't go around saying something that's just not true. But yes, they do. Anyway, so this is well worth watching. All right. I'll leave the link down below to that article. The whole article is really good to read. Here we have another one. Voters in 4 battleground states file lawsuits claiming election meddling funded by Mark Zuckerberg. Yep, there he is. It says voters in 4 battleground states have filed federal lawsuits to prevent the funneling of millions of dollars from Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg, Google, and other tech firms through the Center for Tech and Civic Life, which I haven't really had time to go look up, but I'm pretty sure it's probably very Democrat. So I didn't look that one up, which they allege is attempting to influence the outcome of the presidential election. And so this organization, well, they also had this, which was a little earlier. I forget when this one came out. September 11th. Wisconsin Voters Alliance files complaint against Zuckerberg-funded group for election meddling. So there are several of them that are doing this because of these donations. Now, this is the Amistad Project is actually who put out a press release on this. And it says federal lawsuits filed to challenge use of Zuckerberg millions claims funds used to influence election outcome in battleground states. And it's Michigan, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin take action against municipal programs to turn out Dems only. And the situation you have here is that this Center for Tech and Civic Life and Mark Zuckerberg and others have been trying to channel money into cities, and only certain cities and only certain areas that are predominantly Democrat. So they get more Democrat votes. Well, you can't do that. And the reason you can't do it, if you look on the actual court case here, is because Minnesota Voters Alliance and its member plaintiffs bring this lawsuit against the city of Minneapolis because federal law preempts private federal election grants to cities. Now, they can give the money to the state, but they can't give it to the cities. And especially not with any kind of condition on there that it only goes to like Democrat cities and parts of the city that are Democrat. So they can't do that. And so this article right here goes through, and the guy who is the director of the Amistad Project says government cannot be in the business of playing favorites in elections. These targeted funds pay government officials to turn out the vote in blue jurisdictions, while the governors in these states are making it difficult and actually discouraging in-person voting on election day in more conservative areas of the states. And then it says, government targeting Democratic portions of a state to increase voter turnout while also targeting Republican areas of the state to make it harder to vote violates the basic premise of American jurisprudence, and we are all equal before the law. While Mark Zuckerberg can use his private funds to help voters, these city and county officials can't use the funds from CTCL to favor a certain class of voters over another. America has a dark history of voter suppression before the Voting Rights Act became law. this rigging of the game is the other side of that same coin. So I thought that was an interesting thing, and you can read through the rest of that if you want to. The PDF is this right here. So if you want that too, all of this will be down below. You know me, I like to put in all the links. Well, speaking of voter fraud, well, here we have more. Texas Democrats arrested for election fraud, mail ballot vote harvesting scheme. Now, this was from the 2018 election, but I think they were just arrested just recently. And here is about a 4-minute little video on it, and it will talk about them. And one of them was like a commissioner or something like that. So yeah, that was what happened there. Anyway, kind of interesting. We've got lots of stuff coming out. And speaking of things coming out, this one's great. If you haven't seen this yet, you need to see this one. This is from James O'Keefe with Project Veritas. And guess what? Ilhan Omar is connected to a cash for ballots harvesting scheme. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, she's got this guy, there's one guy, he's bragging about all these ballots, and the most they can collect and turn in are like 3, and he's got like 300 on his dashboard, and he's bragging about it. So, yeah, it's pretty obvious here, and it all ties back to Ilhan Omar, and evidently what they say in this is that there's like a group of them, like a family unit. There's several of them. They're connected, somehow related to each other, and they're running the show there. The Somalis that live there are being played by these people, and they can't do anything about it. So hopefully this is going to bring out some charges, because this is really bad. And I think President Trump retweeted this. He should have. There were like 3 or 4 articles about it, and I think he retweeted every single one, like Sarah Carter and I don't know who all they were, but there were 3 or 4 of them, and he retweeted them all. So I thought this was a very interesting tweet by Doug Collins that I thought you'd like to see. So if you remember, James Comey put this out and had these trees and had him looking up at him, and he said, so many questions. And Doug Collins says, so many answers. P.S. There aren't many trees where you're going. Oh, yeah. Oh, I so hope this guy gets to be in the Senate. I want him around for a long time because I think he'll be excellent. Yeah. Okay, anyway, let's go on. Lindsey Graham also tweeted out that he has the schedule that's going to happen, and they're going to start on everything for the nomination of Coney Barrett, well, the confirmation, on October 12th. But a lot of people are very upset about it and saying, why in the world aren't you starting sooner? I told my dad about it. He goes, why are you waiting so long? Well, I think the reason is because if you've gone into the Judiciary site, you see that there is an I don't want to say application. It's a questionnaire that they got to fill out. And it's pretty extensive. And they have to list like all of their publications. They have to list all of the cases. They have to list any books they've written, any article, everything. They have to write so much on there. And then after that, and there's other things they have to include. I would say there are like pages and pages and pages of things they have to include in this. So gathering all that up together, although she probably has most of it there, available, but, there's just a lot of stuff. And she has to have all that, then she has to and submit that. And then typically what they do is they have the senators on the Judiciary Committee get to meet one-on-one with the candidate and ask them questions then. And that way they can get more of a feel for the person one-on-one. Well, Mazie Hirono has already said, surprise, surprise, that she's not going to do it. And then Dick Durbin said, oh, he's not going to meet with her. So I don't know how many more won't. But, that's their laws. If they're not going to do it, tough noogies. It's not our fault if you choose not to. So anyway, he says the hearing will last 3 to 4 days. using the format the committee has followed for recent Supreme Court nominees. Opening statements by Judiciary Committee members and the nominee will occur on Monday, October 12th. So pretty much Monday is just for opening statements, which means a lot of hooey from the Democrats, I'm sure. And then he says the questioning of Judge Barrett will begin on Tuesday, October 13th. Testimony by those who know Judge Barrett the best and legal experts is expected to follow. And like I said, down here, if you read these, a lot of people are, why, waiting too long. Go ahead and start, too long. Start Monday, But I really think the reason is because of the process. And you do have to respect the process somewhat. To vet the candidate, they do need to receive all these documents and they need to go through them. And there are multiple pages. I mean, I went through Kavanaugh's and it was a huge file. So I would assume she has a pretty big file too. And I just thought it was very interesting that there's been so little about her family makeup, and especially the two children from Haiti, because of course, this is another brilliance of her as a pick, because they can't yell at her for being racist, so they don't have that. But now they're trying to say that her claims of being a good mother are not true, because obviously she couldn't be a good mother and do all this stuff and rise to the position that she's in. So it's like, wait, did you just call Ruth Bader Ginsburg a bad mother then? Because she had kids, and yet she rose to the Supreme Court. So anybody who has kids can't be on the Supreme Court? Or are you saying that men can do that and it's okay, but the women can't? It's just so crazy. Yeah, they're not consistent. Well, this is a link to what we talked about on the live stream on Friday night. I hadn't seen this before, but wow, you guys were right. This is really pretty scary. This woman went to her eighth grade football game in Ohio, and they tried to arrest her, and she resisted, of course. I don't know why that picture's not coming out. It's just being a pain tonight. But when she resisted, they tasered her, and because she didn't have a mask. And they were spread out, too. Here's the entire video. I'm not going to play it for you, but wow. I mean, it's ridiculous. And everybody sitting there thought it was ridiculous. See, there's big spaces between the clumps of people. And chances are, if you go to something like that, you're there with your family. And and I got to ask you this, okay, guys? I went to my parents' house today. And my dad likes to watch football. And so he was watching football. They have the crowd yelling and there's no crowd. Why? Okay. Is that for the benefit? Do they play it in the stadium for the players? So it hypes the players up? I could almost understand that. But why have it for the people at home? Just because they want to manipulate us or something? It's so fake. It's like there's no crowd. Why am I hearing crowd sounds? I should be hearing crowd sounds. So, I don't know. That's just an aside there. It just struck me as we were watching it. And of course, my dad had to have it on. And I'm like yelling at him to carry on a conversation. And finally, we just muted it. What difference does it make? There's no real sound anyway. Anyway, so I don't know, just out of the blue, I wanted to look up Dan Scavino. Just out of the blue. I was thinking about him, and he does so much on Twitter. He does such a really good job on Twitter. And, one of the things I didn't know about him until just very recently was how long he's known President Trump. I didn't know he'd known him for so long. I thought he was one of the more recent people that came in during the campaign, and I just figured he was fairly new and everything. But oh no, they've known each other for a very, very long time. And one of the things that you might have heard, if you've listened to President Trump in his rallies, sometimes he says this. When he became president, he was always probably pretty well known by a lot of people, and he had a lot of friends. He's an extrovert, and so extroverts, they like to have a lot of friends. They're, just very outgoing, and they love talking to people and being with people and everything. And I just kind of wonder if, when he became president, all of his old friends just seemed to kind of dissipate. I mean, well, they didn't dissipate. They just stepped back because now he's the president. And he's talked about this before, how they wouldn't call him by his first name anymore. They'd call him by Mr. President. And he says that's great that they honor the office, but it's like, I think he misses having those friends. Just the things that he said. And I can totally understand that. It would be a little tough to be in that situation because you can't just go out with your friends for a night on the town. You can't just do stuff with your friends. I mean, you're really limited. And so I think having Dan Scavino there is probably, that's one of the things that helps him get through things. So I tend to think that Dan's like his man there. And so I went to this and I started reading through. I thought it was very interesting to read, go through this, and they got to say something nasty about him here, of course. And I went down here. Well, I thought it was interesting. Here it says, in May 2019, Politico reported that Scavino frequented the Donald subreddit. I thought that was pretty cool. And when I read this the first time, because I actually was collecting all these, and this was my intention to do the video for Sunday morning, this was going to be part of it. And then, I met the people on the side of the road, so I decided to do that instead, which I thought was kind of interesting that, they really knew their stuff. It was fun to hear that. But anyway, there was another paragraph in here when I first brought it up. And I thought, it's odd. When I brought it up today, it's not there because that's what I wanted to show you. Well, I went up to the edit part. You know how they have like up here at the top, top, that way. You can go here and view history and you can see the previous ones. Well, here was a previous one. And this was the paragraph they took out right here. So, and the reason they took it out was because there wasn't a source for it. And so it says, in October 2017, Dan began working with Admiral Mike Rogers, Lieutenant General Mike Flynn, SFC Jim Watkins, and a few more officials from both military intelligence and information technology to publicly disseminate past and upcoming events that were previously only available to TS SCI cleared individuals via SSBI under the Department of Energy Q clearance, which agencies such as NGA, 16AF, ONI, DIA, NSA, NRO, INSCOM, ODNI, and more all utilize. But there wasn't any source for it. Now, while Mr. 17 hasn't specifically said this, that he's working with them, he did mention Dan. Well, so we assume he is working with them. Now, I don't know if Dan started back then, but I tend to think he's one of the 10 or the less than 10. So that's in my opinion. I just thought that was very interesting. But one of the things it says here is that on June 18, 2019, USA Today released an article saying that Scavino is the one who writes Trump's tweets. That's not accurate because here's the article, and yet they try to say it in the headlines. He writes Trump's tweets and has been with Trump's campaign since day one. Okay, this is back in 2019. Well, if you go down here and you start looking at it, it's not what it says. By the way, I just thought this was interesting. Now, remember, this was in 2019. They said the only 4 that are left that originally came in with him was Stephen Miller, Kellyanne Conway, Stephanie Grisham, and Dan Scavino. But now the only ones that are left are Stephen Miller and Dan Scavino, both of which I think work with Mr. 17, or know about him at least. Anyway, I'm going down here. Scavino started as a caddy at the club, and so there's a little bit of snobbery in this particular article that, he's just a caddy. That's all he is. He's a caddy. But when you go down here, the reason that I'm scrolling all the way down is because what I need to show you is at the bottom, because that's what they like to do, right? Remember, the truth in a lot of these liberal online websites and stuff, you've got to go further down. because they like to mislead with the top. What did they just say at the top? The headline said that he's the one that writes Trump's tweets. Oh no, he doesn't write Trump's tweets. Well, we're going to find out that no, that's not true. Scavino is said to talk with the president more than almost any other aide, and Trump himself has said he'll often take Scavino's words of advice on issues too. Why not? I mean, he's his friend. They're friends. We know that. Oftentimes I'll go through Dan, I'll talk it over, and he can really be a very good sounding board. A lot of common sense. He's got a good grasp. So, nothing wrong with that. Well, here's the truth. The truth is, Wired magazine says text-only tweets sent between 6 p.m. and 10 a.m. are the most likely to be written by the president due to his schedule and cable TV news viewing habits. If there's a thread of tweets, the magazine surmises, you see that word there? Surmises. They're not proving anything. This is just them surmising that Scavino is more likely to have written them. Now, honestly, I think probably the ones with the pictures and stuff like that. I think Scavino does those. But I do think President Trump does a lot of his own tweets. And then down here, they have to talk about the spelling mistakes. But hey, we're in the know about those. So it's possible famous tweets about Covfefe and recently Prince of Wales may have been typed out by the president himself. Well, you bet they were. But the reality is we don't know. Because, see, what they're trying to say here is Trump's a moron because he can't spell. Yeah, well, spelling counts. We know that, right? Spelling counts. And I put on here before, I have an article that says that President Trump's very meticulous about how they're spelled. And I think there's a reason for that. Anyway, so that was just a little aside, but I thought it was very interesting that that's what was going on. Anyway, I want to really talk about this Red Mirage. Now, I don't know if you heard about this. This came out September 1st. So they evidently have been talking about it, but I think it's mostly on the mainstream media, so I haven't heard it yet until just the other day. And I thought, well, I need to look into that. So, what is the Red Mirage? It says nightmare for Democrats. I think it's going to be a nightmare because I don't think it's going to come true. I think it's going to be red reality. But I thought it was interesting here. It says, for a good while now, a number of us political obsessives have been playing Paul Revere. In warning of an election night phenomenon that could lead to a contested presidential election and perhaps a constitutional crisis. Dream on. Dream on. And essentially what it is where Trump wins big time on election day, and he goes out and says that he's won, and all of his supporters say he's won, and then all of a sudden they start counting those ballots. Yeah, like the Ilhan Omar ballots, right? And he loses his lead diminishes, and all of a sudden he loses. They keep saying this. It's not true. It's not going to happen, but they keep saying it. And so it says down here, now the digital data firm Hawkfish has come up with an empirically solid scenario of how this Red Mirage, as they call it, might unfold. Yeah, so what is this digital data firm Hawkfish? So I go looking for it, and I find this, and it's a U.S. political data and technology-based agency headquartered in New York City, founded by Michael Bloomberg. The firm was founded in the spring of 2019 to support Democratic candidates, good causes, and common sense solutions. Those are oxymorons. Anyway, so yeah, it is Bloomberg. But guess what? There's no website for it. Okay? This is a data and technology-based agency with no website. Think about that. Now, there is a website that deals with Hawkfish, but it's out of Norway and it has nothing to do with it. It's kind of similar, and it supports something that's, instead of CNN, it's CCN. And kind of caught me off guard there when I first looked at it. But yeah, that was the only thing I could find. The only website that is out there for Hawkfish. But anyway, this is Hawkfish. And we've known about this actually since December 23rd of 2019 because Michael Bloomberg Mike Bloomberg is plowing millions of dollars into a secretive tech firm he founded months ago as he seeks the White House. And it's a technology company called Hawkfish with former executives from Facebook. And Foursquare is helping Bloomberg's 2020 presidential bid. Well, it's still happening. And soon after Hawkfish incorporated in the spring, it started working on races in Virginia and Kentucky, where Democrats scored key victories in November. So, yep, they've already been working. And the one guy is from Facebook. And he was pretty big. He was a pretty big guy at Facebook. So Hawkfish will be the primary digital agency and technology services provider for the campaign and is now providing digital ad services, including content creation, ad placement, and analytics for their campaign. And it will also help Democratic races across the country in future election cycles. So, millions of dollars are being poured into this. And this is very interesting that it seems like the Democrats have really beefed up all these little organizations, these little PR firms that they're hoping will help them win. Because evidently I keep seeing that they say, well, the Republicans really do such a good job on the getting the word out and everything. It's like, okay, yeah, you guys pretty much own all the major social media outlets, but we're doing a good job. Isn't that saying something? Which I think we are. But I think we are because we have an army of digital soldiers. So I like this one. It says Red Mirage or Blue Coup, Democrats and the mail-in ballot campaign. And so, President Trump has warned the nation that the Democrats' push for vastly expanded mail-in voting could signal their plans to rig the 2020 election. His warning about potentially massive fraud with mail-in voting is buttressed by the work of American experts in the electoral process as well as the experience of other countries. And now, the Red Mirage scenario being floated in the news media highlights the possibility that it will be precisely those controversial mail-in votes that will decide the 2020 election and the future of the country. The Red Mirage scenario comes from analysis by a data firm funded by Michael Bloomberg and refers to the likelihood that the nation could see what appears to be a Trump landslide on election night, but that his victory will fade like a mirage in the desert in the coming days as Democrat mail-in votes are counted. What is really stupid about this is they're the ones making up these stories. Talk about truthification. Oh my goodness, this is exactly what it is. They take fiction and they put it out there as truth, hoping people will buy into it. And evidently, people are. And they're talking about this Red Mirage. So let's look a little bit more into this Hawkfish. Now, it's said that they've not given any money. Well, yes, they have. August 31st of 2020, they gave $83,000 to Unite the Country. And if you look at Unite the Country, here are some of their donors, and look at the amounts. You got Victory 2020, $3.5 million. 1630 Fund, we've talked about them before, 1630 Fund. And they gave $3.5 million. I don't know who this James Simmons is, but he gave $3 million. So a lot of money has gone into this. Look at those numbers. I mean, that's big time bucks there. Yeah, educational fund. The IBEW. Interesting. Oh, guess what? American Bridge 21st Century Foundation. Yeah, that's part of David Brock's Media Matters stuff. Yeah, so very interesting. All these different ones. Looking through them. Just a lot of money. Going in there. And so it's going to... Oh, look at that. This person is in Indiana. Who? I wonder who that is. $500,000. Not a chump change, that's for sure. So I just thought it was very interesting that that's who they are. And if you go to unite the country, which is that this is how much that they've brought in, $35 million, and they've had 30 million were contributions. I don't know where the 5 million came from, but some kind of grant or something. I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, there's their receipts, and then here's their total disbursements. So you got to wonder if they're channeling things into their own companies, which is what they've been doing. You know, they create these little companies to put out these garbage claims, and then they pay them to do it. You know, they collect money and they pay them to do those things. So I thought it was really interesting down here because it says cash summary. Look how much their ending cash on hand is. $6,660,000. 666. Gee, coincidence? I don't know. Anyway, I wanted to share this with you because I thought this was a really good article you might be interested in. Secret report how CIA's Brennan overruled dissenting analysts who concluded Russia favored Hillary. So we now know that the whole Russia collusion thing was the brainchild of John Brennan. Of course, we knew that, right? We knew it pretty much. Yeah, this is a really good article. You're going to want to read about it. The explosive conclusion Brennan inserted into the report was used to help justify the Trump-Russia collusion investigation, which had been launched by the FBI in 2016. It was picked up after the election by special counsel Robert Mueller, who in the end found no proof that Trump or his campaign conspired with Moscow. So just thought this was a really good article you would probably want to read, and I'll leave the link down below for you so you can do that. Little bit of update on Flynn here. He's supposed to find out on the 29th whether they're going to dismiss or not, you know, if Emmett Sullivan is going to do that. So this is yet one more. This was filed on the 24th, and this is one more from the government saying it's a government supplemental filing in support of motion to dismiss. So they're saying dismiss it already. And for this one, the documentation for it is this interview down here with William J. Barnett. So if you haven't read that yet, it's very eye-opening too. Yeah, you need to go through and read that. So anyway, basically, after you read these things, the evidence is so clear that it needs to be dismissed. But we'll see what happens on Tuesday. Tuesday's going to be a fun day. Oh, and speaking of that fun day on Tuesday, President Trump says, I will be strongly demanding a drug test of sleepy Joe Biden prior to or after the debate on Tuesday night. Naturally, I will agree to take one also. His debate performances have been record-setting uneven, to put it mildly. Only drugs could have caused this discrepancy. He puts question marks at the end. Doesn't sound like a question to me. I think that's pretty funny. So, yeah, wouldn't that be great? Yeah, do a drug test. I'm all for it. If you haven't seen Ben Garrison's newest one, he has a cartoon where Kamala is feeding all these Red Bulls to Joe Biden, and Trump's out on stage already peeking in going, is he ready yet for the debate? So it's a pretty funny one. Anyway, then I wanted to close with this. You know, I like always to have something fairly positive at the end if possible. And I thought this was positive. We talked about this a little bit before, but here it is. Trump Pence pray with thousands of Christians gathered in D.C. for a day of repentance. And they had so many people there. I mean, look at this. It was just thousands and thousands. I had a friend who's there, and I'm anxious to see if she has some pictures when she gets back and everything. But she was pretty excited about being there. She and her husband went there. I wish I could have been there, but you know, I'm just glad I'm surviving after doing a live stream on Friday night. But anyway, this one right here says over 50,000. Well over 50,000 Christians lifting their prayer and worship over America today at the Lincoln Memorial. So there it is. There's a video that goes with it. So nice to hear that. I mean, that's the kind of stuff we need. We need prayer, and prayer changes things. So I think we're going to see some great movement in the next few weeks. Things are happening, folks, and it's great to see. We're going to see America restored. And for those who are impatient and saying why we know they're guilty, we've got the evidence now, you got to understand that it needs to come out to a lot of people, and it has to come out slowly so people can absorb each new step that's coming out. Because otherwise, if it's just a big dump, people aren't going to read it. And you're not going to be able to absorb everything that's in it. And we need them to understand, the American people need to understand exactly what they did, all the different steps that they did to try to overthrow our president. And that is going to be vital, because otherwise, when the arrests come, they will be taken as nothing more than a political hit job. So it's really important that we take our time in this, that all the cases are so well made that these slimy critters don't get out. Okay, you don't want them slipping through some stupid loophole. It needs to be built very well. It needs to be locked up 100%, no way out. All right? Anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you on this one. Sorry I don't have a shout out, but this is a long enough video the way it is. So that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.